There comes a time in everyone's life when worry begins to whisper louder than faith. We look at our circumstances, the bills that need paying, the dreams that seem delayed, the relationships that feel uncertain, and we begin to ask, Lord, what's going on? Have you forgotten me? But the truth is this: God never forgets. He is not pacing heaven in confusion, wondering how to fix your situation. No, He has already arranged everything concerning you. Long before you faced that challenge, He had already written the solution. Before the storm began, He had already planned your rescue. Every event, every delay, every turn you take, all of it is woven into a divine pattern that leads to purpose. When we understand this, peace begins to rise in our hearts, because peace isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of trust. You see, life may feel uncertain to us, but it's never uncertain to God. He is not trying to figure things out. He's already finished what you're just beginning to walk through. That's why today's message is a gentle reminder from heaven: relax. God has already arranged everything for you. This isn't an invitation to laziness or passivity. It's a call to faith. It's a divine assurance that you don't need to worry about what's ahead, because the one who holds tomorrow is already working behind the scenes. So as you listen today, let your heart rest. Take a deep breath. Stop replaying yesterday and stop fearing tomorrow, for the God who orders the stars also orders your steps, and what He arranges can never be undone by man, by mistake, or by circumstance. God's sovereignty is not merely a comforting phrase, it is the anchor of our faith and the foundation of our peace. To say that God is sovereign means that He rules over everything with absolute authority and flawless wisdom. Nothing escapes His knowledge, and nothing unfolds without His awareness. Every sunrise, every heartbeat, every opportunity, and every challenge is under His divine supervision. When you begin to see life through the lens of God's sovereignty, anxiety loses its voice. You no longer view situations as random occurrences, but as divine arrangements that serve a greater purpose. Think about how the world functions. The planets orbit with precision. The tides rise and fall at appointed times, and the seasons change right on schedule. These patterns are not coincidences. They are reflections of divine order. If God can hold the universe in balance, surely He can handle the details of your life. What feels like confusion to you may actually be coordination from heaven. When doors close, when people walk away, or when plans fail, God's sovereignty ensures that none of it is wasted. Every moment you experience has been filtered through His love and crafted to shape your destiny. Many times we struggle to rest in this truth because we desire control. We want to understand every turn, every delay, every setback. But control is not the path to peace. Trust is. You may not always see God's hand, but you can always trust His heart. The story of your life is being written by the same author who wrote the galaxies into existence. His sovereignty means He is not reacting to your situation. He has already arranged it. You may be walking into a room that feels unfamiliar, but heaven has already prepared it before you arrived. Consider the life of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. Joseph's path looked like one disaster after another, yet behind the curtain of hardship, God's sovereignty was at work. Every injustice and disappointment was setting the stage for divine promotion. When Joseph finally stood as governor over Egypt, he realized that what others meant for harm, God used for good. That is the beauty of sovereignty. It transforms pain into purpose and chaos into clarity. You may not see it now, but every trial you face is carrying you towards something greater than what you lost. Understanding God's sovereignty changes how we respond to life's uncertainties. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? You begin to ask, what is God teaching me through this? The shift from panic to purpose begins when you recognize that you are not the manager of your destiny. You are the participant in a divine plan. Every interruption is an invitation to trust. Every disappointment is a doorway to deeper faith. When you rest in the sovereignty of God, you no longer measure your peace by what you can control, but by who is in control. Even your mistakes cannot undo his arrangements. The beauty of sovereignty is that it includes grace. God's plan takes into account your failures, your fears, and your flaws. He knows the detours you'll take and the doubts you'll face, yet his design still leads you to the right destination. Just as a GPS recalculates your route when you make a wrong turn, God's sovereignty redirects your life toward his purpose, no matter how far you've wandered. You may have taken the long way around, but his plan still stands. This understanding should produce not passivity, but peace. You are still called to work, to plan, and to make wise decisions, but you do so without the burden of fear. You make choices with confidence, knowing that God's sovereignty can even work through your imperfections. You step forward not because you see the whole path, but because you know the one who designed it. You rest not because everything is easy, but because you are certain that everything is arranged. When you realize God's sovereignty governs your life, you stop striving for control and start seeking alignment. Instead of saying, I must make this happen, your heart begins to say, Lord, let your will happen through me. It is in that posture of surrender that peace enters. The storms may not stop, but your soul learns to be still. The winds may blow, but your foundation stands firm because it's built on the unshakable truth that God reigns. There will be times when his plan does not make sense. There will be moments when you cannot trace his hand. But even then, his sovereignty assures you that he has not abandoned you. He is not absent, he is arranging. The silence of heaven does not mean inactivity, it means preparation. The delays you face are not denials, they are divine pauses that ensure everything unfolds at the perfect time. God is never late, never rushed, and never uncertain. His timing may test your patience, but it will never fail your purpose. So, when life feels uncertain, remind yourself, the same God who orchestrates the movements of the stars is orchestrating the details of your story. The same God who holds the oceans in place is holding you together. Rest in that truth. Relax your heart. You do not need to know the plan to trust that there is one. The peace you seek is not found in answers, but in assurance. And that assurance is this: God's sovereignty has already arranged everything for you. Waiting is one of the most challenging disciplines of faith. It tests the strength of our trust and the depth of our patience. Yet in God's design, waiting is never wasted. It is not a pause in progress, but a process of preparation. When God asks us to wait, he is not withholding something from us. He is working something within us. Every moment of delay carries divine purpose, shaping us into the person capable of carrying the blessing he has planned. In our human nature, we often equate waiting with inactivity, but in the spiritual realm, waiting is one of the most powerful forms of faith. It means standing still when everything in you wants to move. It means believing when there is no visible sign of progress. It means trusting God's promise, even when you don't see any evidence of fulfillment. The waiting season teaches you that your faith must not depend on outcomes, but on the character of the one who made the promise. When you read through Scripture, you'll notice that every great man and woman of faith went through a waiting period before receiving what God promised. Abraham waited for the child God said he would have. Joseph waited years in prison before stepping into the palace. David waited to become king long after he was anointed. Even Jesus waited until the appointed time to begin his ministry. Waiting is a divine classroom where faith matures, character develops, and spiritual muscles are strengthened. We often pray for answers, but God is more interested in building endurance. If blessings were given too quickly, they would lack foundation. The waiting period ensures that what you receive will not destroy you but sustain you. When God makes you wait, it's because he's working on the unseen parts of your life, your heart, your mindset, your priorities, and your perspective. Sometimes the blessing is ready, but you are not. The delay is not denial, it's preparation. Waiting also has a refining power. It reveals what truly holds your heart. In the waiting room, you learn whether your faith is in God or in the outcome. You learn to love the giver more than the gift. When everything you want is out of reach, you begin to discover that the true treasure is God's presence, not His presence. The closer you draw to Him in waiting, the less anxious you become about when things will happen. Peace grows in proportion to your trust. But waiting does not mean sitting idly. It is an active form of faith. While you wait, you worship. While you wait, you prepare. While you wait, you continue to walk in obedience to what you already know. When a farmer plants a seed, he doesn't dig it up every day to see if it's growing. He waters it, protects it, and trusts the process. In the same way, when you've prayed, believed, and obeyed, your role is to wait in faith. The seed will grow when the time is right. Patience is not weakness. It is strength under control. The world tells you that if things don't happen quickly, you must make them happen. But faith says, I'll wait until God moves. Rushing leads to regret, but waiting leads to wisdom. Many people miss their miracles because they try to make them happen in their own timing. Sarah tried to rush God's promise to Abraham, and the result was confusion. When you interfere with divine timing, you create unnecessary pain. But when you wait, you allow God to bring things together perfectly. His way, His time, His plan. Sometimes waiting seasons feel silent. You pray and hear nothing. You look for signs and nothing changes. Yet behind that silence, heaven is busy. God is not ignoring you. He is organizing. He is arranging people, opportunities, and circumstances in ways you could never imagine. The silence of God is not His absence, it's His strategy. You don't hear Him speaking because He is working. Think of a tapestry. On the back, all you see are tangled threads and knots, but when you turn it over, a beautiful pattern appears. Waiting is like that. From your side, it looks messy, confusing, and unfinished. But from heaven's side, it's a masterpiece in progress. When the time comes, everything will make sense, and you'll see that every delay was necessary to complete the design. The danger in waiting is to assume that nothing is happening. That's when doubt begins to whisper, maybe God forgot, maybe He changed His mind. But faith must answer back, no, He is faithful. He cannot lie. If He said it, He will do it. The promise may not come when you want, but it will come right on time. Every moment of waiting is a reminder that God's clock runs on purpose, not on pressure. Waiting also trains you to depend on God rather than on your own efforts. It shifts your focus from results to relationship. When you learn to wait well, you become content in His timing. You stop comparing your life to others because you realize that divine timing is personal. God's plan for you is unique, and comparing your season to someone else's only breeds frustration. Their timing is not your timing, and your delay does not mean defeat. So when you find yourself in a season of waiting, don't lose heart. Instead of asking, how long will this take? Ask, what is God preparing me for? Because while you're waiting for something to change, God is often changing you. He's teaching you humility, trust, and resilience. He's shaping your heart to handle the next level of blessing. The waiting season is sacred. It's the bridge between promise and fulfillment. When the appointed time comes, everything will fall into place with divine ease. The doors that were closed will open effortlessly, and what once seemed impossible will come together naturally. You will look back and realize that the waiting was worth it because it produced faith, patience, and peace. So relax in the waiting. Don't rush what God is still preparing. Trust that while you wait, heaven is working. Remember, every delay has a reason, every pause has a purpose, and every moment of waiting brings you closer to what God has already arranged for you. Trust is one of the purest expressions of faith. It is the act of resting your confidence not in what you can see, but in who God is. Life will often lead you into places where the path is unclear, the outcome uncertain, and the future hidden. In those moments, trust becomes more than a word. It becomes your lifeline. Trust means believing that God's plan is still perfect, even when it doesn't align with your understanding. It means surrendering the need for explanations and embracing peace through faith. Many people say they trust God, but true trust is revealed when everything seems out of control. It's easy to trust when the doors are opening, when the prayers are being answered, and when life feels smooth. But real trust is forged in the fire of uncertainty. It is in the seasons of confusion and silence that faith matures. God doesn't test your trust to break you. He tests it to strengthen you. He wants to teach you how to depend on Him even when nothing makes sense. When you cannot see the outcome, trust reminds you that the unseen hand of God is still working. Just because you can't trace His steps doesn't mean He's not moving. The human mind longs for certainty, but spiritual maturity learns to find peace in mystery. You don't need to know how God will do it. You just need to believe that He will. When you release the need to understand everything, you make room for divine intervention. God works best in the space where human logic ends. The scriptures are full of stories where trust triumphed over sight. Abraham trusted God's promise of a son even when age made it impossible. Moses trusted God to part the sea even when there was no way forward. Peter trusted Jesus enough to step out of the boat and walk on water, even when it defied natural laws. Each of these moments demonstrates that trust doesn't require full understanding. It requires full surrender. Faith says, I may not know the way, but I know the one who leads. When you face trials, it's natural to ask, why God? But trust doesn't always need an answer. It just needs assurance. It's the quiet conviction that even if I don't understand today, one day I will see that everything worked together for good. You might not see the pattern yet, but God is not improvising. He's orchestrating. Every delay, every detour, and every disappointment is part of a divine sequence designed to lead you to purpose. The steps and the stops are both ordered by God. Trust is also the antidote to fear. Fear thrives in uncertainty, but trust silences it. When you remind yourself that God has never failed you, your heart calms down. The same God who carried you through the last storm will carry you through this one. His track record is flawless. The problem is that we often focus on what we don't know instead of who we do know. Fear grows when you fixate on circumstances. Faith grows when you focus on God's character. Trust is choosing to believe that His plan is still good, even when life feels hard. Sometimes trusting God will require you to release your own plans. We all love to map out our futures, setting timelines and expectations. But when God interrupts those plans, it's not to frustrate you, it's to fulfill you. He knows what's ahead, and His detours are always for your protection. You might think something is falling apart, but in reality, it's falling into place. What feels like loss could actually be a redirection towards something far better. Trust is the bridge between your disappointment and His destiny. There will be moments when trusting God means standing still. Our culture glorifies constant action, but sometimes faith looks like waiting quietly while God works silently. It's not always about doing more, it's about believing more. When the Israelites stood before the Red Sea with the Egyptian army behind them, God didn't tell them to fight or run. He told them to stand still and see His salvation. In the same way, when you don't know what to do next, stand firm in faith. The God who brought you this far has not brought you here to abandon you. Trust also requires humility. It's the recognition that God's wisdom far exceeds our understanding. His ways are higher, His thoughts are deeper, and His timing is perfect. You might think you're ready for the promise now, but God knows when your heart is truly prepared. What looks like a delay may be divine development. When you trust His timing, you declare that His schedule is more reliable than your urgency. He is never late, even when he seems silent. Another powerful truth about trust is that it produces peace. When you trust that God is in control, you no longer carry the heavy burden of trying to control everything yourself. Worry fades when trust rises. The moment you surrender your fears to God, your spirit finds rest. Philippians 4:7 describes it perfectly. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds. That peace doesn't come from knowing the outcome. It comes from knowing the author. Trusting God also transforms how you see pain. Instead of viewing challenges as punishment, you begin to see them as preparation. The very thing that seems to break you may be the thing that builds you. God never wastes a trial. He uses every tear, every setback, and every waiting season to strengthen your faith. The pain you feel today may one day become the testimony that encourages someone else. That's why trust is so essential. It turns suffering into seed, and seed always leads to growth. So when life feels uncertain and the future seems blurry, remind yourself of this. Trust is not about having all the answers. It's about having confidence in the one who does. The same God who designed your beginning already knows your ending. Every chapter in between has purpose. Your job is not to figure it all out. Your job is to keep walking, believing, and resting in his plan. You can't see the full picture yet, but God can. You don't know what tomorrow holds, but he's already there. So instead of asking, what if, begin to declare, even if it takes longer than I expected, even if I don't understand why, even if it doesn't look the way I imagined, I will still trust God. Because when you trust him completely, you'll realize that the story of your life has been in perfect hands all along. The hands that arranged everything before you even began. Peace is one of the most desired, yet misunderstood gifts of life. People chase it through achievement, wealth, relationships, or control, believing that if they can just fix everything around them, their hearts will finally be at rest. But true peace is not found in managing life. It is found in surrendering it. The more you try to control everything, the more anxious you become. The moment you let go and place it all in God's hands, you begin to experience a peace that cannot be explained, only felt. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It flows from trust in the one who controls circumstances. Surrender is not weakness, it is wisdom. It takes more strength to let go than to hold on. To surrender is to admit that God knows better than we do. It's saying, Lord, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that you do. When you live with that mindset, you step out of the exhausting cycle of worry and step into the calm rhythm of faith. You begin to realize that you don't need to know what's next because you know who's already there. Many believers misunderstand surrender as giving up, but it's not giving up, it's handing over. It's choosing to place control in the hands of the one who never fails. When you surrender, you shift the burden from your shoulders to God's. You stop striving to make everything happen and start trusting him to guide the outcome. The truth is, you were never created to carry the weight of life's uncertainty. That's why Jesus said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Rest doesn't come from control, it comes from release. The more we cling to our plans, the more we limit what God can do. Sometimes God cannot bless us the way he wants because our hands are too full of our own expectations. Surrender opens your hands. It says, God, if this isn't what you have for me, take it away. If there's something better, lead me to it. That is where peace begins, when you stop fighting for your will and start aligning with his. When your desires and his direction meet, your soul settles. The battle ends not because the situation changes, but because your heart does. Peace is not the absence of storms. It's the calm that carries you through them. When Jesus and his disciples were caught in a storm, the disciples panicked, believing they were about to die. But Jesus was asleep. The same waves that frightened them rocked him to rest. What was the difference? They saw danger. He saw divine control. The peace of Jesus didn't come from calm waters. It came from complete trust in the Father. When your faith reaches that level of surrender, you'll discover that storms lose their power to shake you. Surrender also means accepting that God's timing is better than ours. We often create anxiety by trying to rush what God is still preparing. We think, if I don't make this happen now, I'll miss my chance. But the truth is, what is meant for you will never miss you. God's plans are not fragile. They don't fall apart because of delay. His arrangements are eternal, not accidental. When you surrender your timeline to Him, you free yourself from unnecessary pressure. You stop worrying about when things will happen and start resting in assurance that they will happen when the time is right. Another part of surrender is learning to let go of what hurts. Many people carry emotional weights, past failures, broken relationships, regrets that rob them of peace. They replay moments that can't be changed, holding on to pain as if doing so could fix it. But peace only enters where bitterness exits. Surrender means saying, Lord, I release this. I forgive. I let it go. When you let go of what wounded you, God heals what broke you. And when healing comes, peace follows. Surrendering control doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying. It means you still pray, still plan, still act, but without anxiety. You do what you can, and you trust God with what you can't. This mindset changes everything. Suddenly, you can face uncertainty without fear because you know God has already arranged the outcome. You can face opposition with grace because you know God is your defender. You can even face loss with hope because you know God restores what's surrendered to Him. When peace comes from surrender, it's unshakable. The world can change, but your heart remains steady. People can disappoint you, but you remain unmoved. Situations can fall apart, but you don't lose yourself in the chaos. This is the kind of peace the Bible calls beyond understanding. It doesn't make sense to the world because it isn't built on worldly foundations. It's built on faith, on trust, and on the unchanging character of God. To live in surrender, you must practice letting go daily. Every morning, you can begin your day by saying, Lord, I give you this day. Lead me. I trust your plan. Every night you can close your eyes and say, Lord, I did my best today, and I leave the rest with you. These small acts of surrender build a lifestyle of peace. The more you release control, the lighter you feel. The lighter you feel, the freer you live. It's important to remember that surrender does not remove challenges. It changes how you face them. Life will still present storms, but surrender gives you stability. It allows you to walk through fire without being consumed, to stand in uncertainty without fear, and to rest even when everything around you seems unstable. The peace of God is not fragile, it's fierce. It protects your mind, guards your heart, and strengthens your spirit. So if your heart feels heavy today, if your mind is full of worries about tomorrow, hear this truth. You don't have to hold it all together. Let go. Surrender the situation, the timeline, the fear, and the outcome. Lay it before God and say, you are in control, and I trust you. When you truly release it, you will feel a deep calm settle in your soul, the peace that only comes when you stop fighting life and start flowing with God's arrangement. Peace will no longer be something you chase. It will become the atmosphere you live in. Because when you finally surrender, you will see that everything you were trying to manage was already in the hands of the one who never fails. And in that surrender, you will discover the lasting truth. God has already arranged everything for you.